Hello, this is Fritz-Ay says, and welcome back to Lyre. This is the third episode, and we just got done taking a bath with Lyre, and we're going to resume. The hours drag by slowly. I spent most of the afternoon after lunch going through scrolls, documents and letters that were sent to me to deliver to the king and his council. Most of these go to the king, though. I don't think he has a very large council, which is partly why I'm here. Leo came back to my room sometime after lunch, relieving the guard who took over while he was gone. He peeked in and asked if I needed anything while I was working. I invited him in because I knew that I still wanted to pry some information out of him about what's to come. Sure, I'd been in this position for some time, but this is my first time outside of my own kingdom. And they seem to do things differently around here. I also enjoy his company. He's sitting there in the same chair he sat in last night, toying around with a dagger. I pick up one of the letters from the small pile and place it in a stack designated for the king's eyes.
So now you deliver the king's mail?
He says this in a snarky tone while resting the end of his finger on the tip of his dagger. I sigh, dropping my hand slowly and glancing out the window. Reasoning behind this was to ensure that all of this, I gazed back at him while gesturing to the letters, got here, but after the rock slide there had been some missing.
The north winds have probably carried them all the way to the golden timber by now. My men gathered up as much as them as they could, though.
I raise an eyebrow as I hold up one of the scrolls which has been smeared with dirt. I know, this trunk was practically smashed to pieces.
The lid was bent.
Whatever. He stifles a giggle and grins at me. It brings me out of my sour, overworked mood for a fleeting moment. His toothy grin is contagious. I grab some of the letters, bunching them up together and stacking them against the desk. I put away the other scrolls and sit at my workspace for a minute with my hands folded on my lap. I go back and forth from staring out the window to staring at Liel. His bushy tail sticks out the back of his chair and sweeps the floor, slowing down over time. He sits there for a minute, tinkering with his blade before lowering his shoulders, letting out a big, breathy sigh.
What?
Huh?
Why are you staring at me? Is this about earlier? Well, I'm sorry about gracing you with my...
What? No! I just wanted to talk more about... I gesture behind me out the door. What to expect.
Oh.
He shivers, shaking his head a bit.
I mean, like I said, you really don't need to prepare for much. It's just dinner.
I know, but I just want to make a good first impression. If I screw this up, I won't be taken seriously in my profession ever again.
Your profession. You won't be taken seriously at the dining table ever again.
He says this with a hint of sarcasm.
However, if it's anything like the dinner we had last night, I'm sure you'll do fine. Personally, I think you're over-exaggerating.
Maybe I am. In any other place, this would be reasonable, but... Does he tend to take these things seriously? He thinks for a moment, his nose twitching.
No, not really. I mean, he does. He just takes a more relaxed approach.
That sounds like it's going to make my job a lot easier. I'll take your word for it. The rest of the day passes by without any trouble. I started to feel really tired at one point. I laid in bed to rest my head for a bit, and almost fell asleep. Leo came in and nudged me back into reality. He told me that we should leave soon, so I put on my suit. The soap from that bath did wonders to my hair, giving it a really nice shine. It also feels nice, too. I pick up the letters and scrolls off the desk and make my way to the door. I look down the hall and see Leo with his arms resting on the sill of the window. He's watching the sun go down behind the mountains, and his figure is engulfed in warm light. His tail is swaying slowly behind him, and his eyes are glazed with the evening light. When I get closer, he turns his head and smiles.
Look at the sunset. Isn't it gorgeous?
I stand next to him and look out the window. The sun eclipses behind the mountains and its warm light cascades over the landscape. The waters of the fjord are glistening with bright pink and orange hues. A soft wind blows through the hall and twists around the pillars. Yes, it's very beautiful.
You're probably not used to views like this.
Back home there aren't as many mountains, but the way the sun shimmers on the waters off the coast of Ern is very enchanting.
I've never been that far west before.
Really?
Yes. I've spent all my life on this side of the continent. I think that it would be very nice to go explore the rest of Tigran.
I think I already know the answer, but I ask anyway. Why don't you? He lowers his head with a bittersweet smile.
Unless this kingdom suddenly sprouts legs and walks across the entirety of Tigran, I can't. I have given my life and heart to the king and his kingdom. I'll be doing this for the rest of my life.
He gestures out across the landscape. That sounds sad.
It's not all bad. I did go a little bit south of Lyre once.
We begin walking down the hall at a slow pace. I think you would like Ern. It's a beautiful place with a perfect climate and rolling hills.
I'm more interested in stranger places.
Like?
Like the Shadow Gulch in the Parched Labyrinth. I just want to go somewhere new. Somewhere completely different from Lyre.
We walk in silence a bit longer. Leo is walking with his paws behind his back and his chin high. He keeps opening his mouth as if he's about to say something, only to close it. Finally he speaks.
I'm sorry about earlier.
What?
Snapping at you like that. It's my fault anyway. I could sense you were uncomfortable the whole time, but I thought I could make things less uncomfortable if I just played it casual. I'm usually the only one in there during that time of day.
Is this about the bathroom?
Yes?
I reach over and place my hand on his back. It's fine. He grimaces and puts on a shy grin.
You're right. I'm sorry. I just tend to overthink these things.
I didn't know you were so shy about your body. My jest gets to him as I watch his mouth curl like he's trying to stop a smile.
I'm not.
He sighs and waves his paw dismissively. I let out a slight chuckle.
Ha ha!
What?
You have a cute laugh.
I can feel my face flush red. Please don't say that. We laugh together for a moment and then carry on the rest of our walk in silence. Delving far into the interior of the castle, we twist and turn through the halls. The torches lining the hallway are lit with a glowing blue fire. As we make our way deeper and deeper into the castle, we pass framed paintings of noble-looking people. I see a badger dressed in colorful clothing with a large ruff around his neck. A little ways down, I see a portrait of a fox, clad in a white and purple silk dress and shawl. After a while, we come across a large pair of double doors.
Well, here we are. Are you ready?
I swallow the lump in my throat and nod, straightening out my clothes. Leo walks up to one of the large doors and raps at it. For a moment, there's only the sound of the door knocker echoing down the empty halls. Then there's a voice from the other side.
Come in.
Leo glances in my direction and opens the door. The door swings open and a warm room meets my eyes. There's a large dining table in the center with 3 chairs. To my left, I see the other chairs have been stacked up against the wall. Cabinets and chests line this wall underneath the curtained windows. On the far right wall, there's a mirror and some wine. Straight ahead of me is a large painting of a table full of food and butchered meats. It looks like a royal pantry. A large chandelier hangs from the ceiling right above the table, illuminating the room with an orange glow from the candles. Despite all of this, the room does look fairly simple. My eyes take in most of this within a second, but after I'm immediately drawn to the figures in the room who stand to greet me. There, sitting in the chair to the left of the room, is a large stag, the king. His antlers are tall and elegant, framed by a crown with the crest of Tigran, the shimmering green gem at the top signifying Lyre's territory. He's clad in a large fur coat with greens and purples. He's almost as big as Lyre. To the right side of the table, I see another deer. This must be the prince. He's not nearly as tall as his father, almost coming up to my height. The antlers on his head are small prongs. He's wearing similar colored clothing, with a much more noble look to it. He has a cape draped over his shoulders, pinned down with the crest of Tigran. His demeanor is dismissive, and he barely makes eye contact with me. I turn my gaze back to the king and lower myself to one knee, bowing my head. King Raynar, it is an honor to finally be in your presence. He has a stern look on his face, but there is warmth to his voice.
It is good to see that you have recovered, Lord Owen. I am so terribly sorry about what happened to you on your journey here.
Yes, it was an unfortunate event. I am very grateful for the welcoming hospitality that you and your staff have shown me. He gives me an understanding nod and gestures towards the prince.
This is my son, Prince Adrius.
I bow in his direction. It is a pleasure to meet you, Your Highness. He grimaces for a moment, clearly uncomfortable with the situation, then straightens up. Likewise. There's a short moment of silence, which is broken by Raynar.
I take it my captain has been helpful.
He gestures towards Lyre, who is standing in the doorway. Leo shrugs his shoulders and smiles. Very helpful, yes.
That's very good to hear. I knew that Captain Reed would do well with this task.
Even though I'm looking in the king's direction, I can still hear Lyre's tail wagging furiously.
Please, take a seat.
It takes a moment for my legs to work again, and I walk around the table, passing behind Adrius. As I'm walking around the table, I hear the door close and realize that Lyre has left. We take our seats, and I set the box of scrolls and letters on the floor next to my seat. There is a moment of silence before Raynar speaks up.
I hope that your accommodations are adequate.
He rests his hand on the table, leaning back in his chair. They are more than adequate, Your Majesty. He draws back with a frown on his face.
Please, you can refer to me as Raynar. I would like to dispense with the formalities while not in public.
If it pleases you. Leo wasn't kidding. This is the most casual king I've ever met. And again, I've only ever met one. Our queen is the no-nonsense type. What is that? He nods towards the box on the floor next to my seat. Oh yes. I bend down to pick up the small box and place it on the table. These are some important documents that were sent with me to deliver to you. Financial reports, some settlements, news about other territories, and other letters of intelligence. I figured that I should give these to you while I had an audience. He motions with his hand for me to slide the box his way. I push the box in his direction and he examines the documents.
Is this everything?
I fold my hands together. This is all that we could salvage after the crash. I have a list of the missing documents and I'll have copies delivered. He opens one of the letters and skims over it before placing it on top of the small pile in the box.
I thank you for bringing these to me. I shall go through these later and share these documents with the rest of my court so that they can evaluate them.
He pushes the box off to his right and places his hands on the table. There's a half minute of silence before Adrius lightly slaps his hands on the table in resignation. So that's it. A glance at a piece of paper and that's all you have to say? The mood of the room instantly changes for a moment and I'm too shocked to even sink into my chair.
As I said, I will look at these documents later.
He turns to me, drumming his fingers on the table.
I had hoped to delay this meeting until Lord Kadaj arrived, but
we have a kingdom to rule. Raynar has a stern look on his face as he stares his son down from across the table.
I have a kingdom to rule, and 2 other kingdoms to work with. I see it as best to wait until both parties are here before discussing such matters.
Adrius grits his teeth for a moment and then reluctantly concedes. Of course, father. I only have our kingdom's best interest at heart. Raynar leans back in his chair with a look of contempt on his face.
Since we are still waiting on our ambassador from Driss, I assume that we could use this time for introductions.
He looks at me with a reassuring smirk. I'm still recovering from the random burst of tense energy, so I just nod in agreement. After a few minutes, the door swings open. 3 servers walk in pushing small carts with food placed on them. They begin to move all the food to the table. There's a large roasted turkey sitting in the center of the table, surrounded by greens and potatoes. They smell delicious, and I can clearly see the steam coming off them. Grapes of a rich purple color are placed on a plate near the center, and there are bowls of different dressings. A large bowl with a salad is placed on the table. The vegetables are layered perfectly, and it's drizzled in oils and vinegar. There's also a plate of crisp bread rolls. The smell reminds me of the bakeries back home. Finally, a large pot of soup is set next to the table on a rolling cart. The servers start to make our plates. I watch them take a little bit of everything and place it on mine. One of the servers walks forward with a pitcher of wine and fills my cup. After a while, everyone has been served their food. My plate is filled with just about everything. It's a lot of food, and I don't know if I'll be able to eat it all, but I just figure I'll eat as much as I can. Raynar's plate has a big steamed potato and a salad bowl with grapes on the side. Adrius opted for a single bowl of soup. We eat a bit before Raynar speaks up.
So, how are things in Ern? I haven't been to the Kingdom of Ern in about 10 years.
I take a moment to finish chewing the piece of turkey in my mouth. I'm afraid you haven't missed out on much. Ern hasn't changed, and I don't think it will change for a while. The climate is as favorable as ever, and our citizens continue to thrive. I fear that I'm rambling, but when I make eye contact, I see that he's giving me his full attention and seems interested in the topic. Meanwhile, the prince sits across the table from me, picking away at his soup with a look of uninterest on his face. I'm told that Ern has managed to supply both Driss and Lyre with an abundance of food. We are fortunate to have such fertile farming lands and very glad to be able to support our neighboring kingdoms, especially with winter drawing near. Smooth. Raynar takes a sip of wine and leans back in his chair.
I agree on that matter. It is very important that we work together. The people of Lyre know better than anyone how harsh a winter can be.
I'm sure that you do. He gives a slight smile and leans forward, taking a bite from his salad.
And we have your people to thank for this food.
I nod in agreement, tipping my wine glass in his direction. We continue to eat while having conversations about our common interest. He seems to be very interested in me, which is new because I've never thought I was that interesting. I guess being in this castle all the time would make him want to live vicariously through others. That's a stretch, though, and I might be overanalyzing. The prince has been quiet for most of the time, interjecting with his thoughts occasionally. So, where exactly did you come from, and how did someone like you achieve nobility? He asked with a look of disdain. I'm starting to dislike him more and more as the night goes on. I lower my glass after taking a drink and pause to swallow. Your Highness, I'm afraid that is not a very interesting story. He doesn't look satisfied with that answer. Leo told me to get on his good side, but I don't think he has one. He seems to be bitter all around. I suppose. He traces his finger around the rim of his wine glass while resting his chin on his fist. I just worked hard and proved myself useful.
Speaking of hard work, I have some important news for you, Lord Owen. I am choosing to appoint you as the Royal Financial Advisor, along with your other duties. Do you think that you will be up to this challenge?
I fold my hands and respond calmly. I have experience with this sort of work back home. It shouldn't prove to be a challenge at all. He looks to be very pleased to hear this.
That is excellent news. The Winter Solstice Ball will be held a month from now, and we'll need to figure out the expenses. It should be quite exciting for you, considering you've never been to one.
The Winter Solstice Ball?
Yes. Here in Lyre, it is one of our most famous celebrations. We celebrate the solstice as a reminder of the death and rebirth of our sun. We use this time to cherish our loved ones.
That sounds really nice. I'll make sure that everything is in order.
Very good. We have past records on hand that you can refer to. I'll have them sent to your apartment in the morning.
Our meal goes into the night and soon everyone is finished eating. I can feel a cold draft from the windows behind me and crickets chirping. I didn't eat everything on my plate, but I still feel full. Raynar gets up from his seat and steps forward, holding out a hand. I'm taken aback by this gesture, but reach forward. He takes my hand in both of his and shakes it up and down once with a firm grip.
It was a pleasure to meet you, Lord Owen. I do hope that you enjoy your stay here, however long it may be.
Thank you, your Raynar. I gather myself and look towards the prince, who is standing across the table. I give a bow in his direction. It was an honor to meet you, your highness. He gives me a slight smile, however I don't feel that it's authentic. You're too kind. It was nice meeting you too. One of the servers opens the door and Lyre walks into the room. I wish the both of you good night. I give a bow in both their directions and then make my way to the door. Leo stands near the doorway. As I make my way over, he gives me a wink with a soft smile. We walk through the doorway, and I spot Raynar giving Adrius a despondent look before the door is closed.
I assume everything went well?
He places a paw on my shoulder with a reassuring smile. Well, I wouldn't say that it went bad. You're looking at the new financial advisor.
That's good?
I'm about to respond when I spot a painting of Raynar and Adrius. Raynar is looking off into the distance with a solemn look on his face, while Adrius confidently glares forward. I'd say that the artist captured them perfectly. I see it as a good opportunity, and I don't think that it should be too hard.
Okay, but how did it go?
Dinner with the king? I don't really know how to feel about it. He's certainly a nice person. I can imagine that he is a good king. He's got an understanding head on his shoulders.
I agree. He is a great king. He has wisdom and kindness unparalleled with others.
The prince, on the other hand? Leo rolls his eyes at the mention of the prince.
He is not the most pleasant person to be around. And he surely doesn't treat me with any respect.
Really? We moved over to one of the windows. He rests his paws on the sill and one of his ears twitches slightly. I can feel the cold night breeze blowing through my hair and on my face.
I think that he called me by my name once.
What does he call you? He sighs, tapping his paws on the bricks.
Wolf, dog, and hound, just to name a few.
Well, that makes him ignorant. You're only one of those things.
Yup, 100% a pure Lyrian wolfman right here.
He bangs his fist on his chest, clattering the metal plate. I laugh and he chuckles to himself timidly.
But I don't think he'll be a problem. Aside from being annoying.
I'll steer clear of him either way. We continue to walk, with Leo in the front leading me through the maze of corridors. I watch the tip of his tail brush the floor from under his cape. We descend a flight of stairs and our walk begins to slow.
I'm glad that we can enjoy each other's company.
He fiddles with one of his gloves, pulling the fourchettes off of his fingers, then pulling the glove back down on his paw by the trank.
It gets very lonely in this castle. It's hard to have friends when you're the captain of the Royal Guard. Things are nice, but I barely have any time to meet new people or go places.
He pauses, letting the words hang in the air.
I'm sorry if this comes off a bit odd, considering I only met you yesterday, but I'm looking forward to working with you, Owen.
We arrive at the door to my room and he stands there waiting for me to say something. I feel the same way. I've only known you for 2 days, but I already think that I know you better than anyone back home.
Really?
Yeah. Back in Earn, people only want things from you. And if you don't have what they want, then they don't give you the light of day. You're the first person who I feel wants to actually be my friend and isn't just trying to use me. I open the door to my room and step inside. Good night, Lyre. He looks at me with a soft smile, his eyes reflecting the little light that there is in this darkness. I can hear his tail beating against his cape as it wags back and forth.
Good night, Owen.
He closes the door and I can hear his heavy footfalls make their way down the hall. I take off my jacket and walk over to my bed, falling onto the mattress. I feel exhausted after everything that happened today. Everything fades out around me as I drift into a deep sleep. Okay. So I'm going to save that there. And that's a good place. I've had a wonderful time recording this. I have been struggling to figure out how to do Raynar and Andrew's voices, but I think I've come to a good spot, and I'm starting to have a lot more play in my voice, I guess, if you guys can say that. I feel like I'm getting a feel for the characters and the voices now, so I'm having a lot of fun. I hope you guys are enjoying it, and this has been Fritz-Ay Says. Have a nice day.